Hello, Falsius Chuck, and welcome to episode 8 of Shortgrass, your Kildare Nationalist sports podcast. I'm Pat Costello, and we have a full lineup this week, no A and others at all. So let's introduce Ger McNally, Richard Commins, and Tommy O'Connell. Lads, we're looking back at a super weekend of hurling in Kildare last weekend, and we're looking forward to a super weekend of football. But lads, as Kildare residents, we have to take our hat off to an awfully man this week. What about Shane Lowry? He did the business over in that environment that was in Long Island on Sunday night. Ger.
Pure stress. Stress. Oh my God.
Stress trying to get a paper together on a Sunday evening when you had half an eye and what was getting more and more exciting as the day wore on. I wouldn't be a huge golf watcher, but definitely the Ryder Cup was something that I always try and watch, and particularly the Sunday if it's at all close at all. And trying to do the paper while keeping an eye on the television was interesting, all right. But what a finish! And great to see an Irishman get such a crucial push.
And how come
we're all
these
down to there in
men,
2 years?
Yeah, how come all these awfully men can do a jig? Back in '82, we had a great jig after Kerry waiting, and now another jig on Sunday night. So the awfully jig, not the awfully rover, the awfully jig from now on.
They weren't jigging in St. Collins Park last summer, so that's.
That's true too. That's true. Anyway, far from the madding crowd, the Kildare Hurling Championship, I suppose, moved on nicely, and we had two big ones on Saturday. The semi-finals of the UPMC Senior Hurling Championship: Kildare versus Naas, Eire versus Maynooth. Naas won 5-18. Kildare 7 points. Maynooth 226. Eire 216. Richard, went along expected lines, I suppose you might say.
Yeah, I think that the two expected results. I thought Naas were a little bit rusty to start with, as you might expect after such a long layoff. I think it was 4 weeks since their last game. Something Tom Mullally alluded to afterwards as not ideal. But once they got their first goal, which was a little bit lucky, it was a Simon Lacey shot that kind of crept in over goalkeeper Russian Convoy's outstretched stick, if you like. Once they got that, they then got a second one straight afterwards from Jack Sheridan, and really it was fairly academic from that point on. So I'm not sure they learned an awful lot about themselves or whether they need to at this stage. Kyle Dove will be disappointed. They didn't really find anything like the groove they were in against Selbridge, and whilst you hoped they might come back because they were at a similar deficit at half-time as they had been against Selbridge in the previous game, it just didn't materialise, and Naas just saw it out easily enough in the end.
A little bit tighter in the other one then, was it?
Yeah, the other one was a much better game, and I think maybe people might have expected it to end up a little bit closer, but it was close for a long period. Eire actually got off to a flyer. They got a goal from Sean O'Neill, who was very impressive on the day. Mm-hmm. And they, could have been even further ahead. They got a penalty in the first half. Sean O'Neill won that as well, but a brilliant save from Sean Bean for Maynooth when they were kind of struggling a little bit at that stage, and I think they were happy enough to go in 3 points up, as it turned out at the interval. They had a good, strong finish to the first half. But Eire, to be fair to them, they stayed with it. There was, I think, only 3 or 4 points in it kind of midway through the second half before Maynooth got a couple of goals from the Ford brothers that really killed the tie at that stage. But I was impressed with them now. Obviously, they're missing Qualter for the rest of the campaign, but Tom Power was very good. Cathal McCabe was, just sensational, I thought, all day. Man of the match, no doubt. But Oren Byrne in midfield is another young fella coming through, was impressive as well, scored 4 points from midfield, and having the two forwards back gives them that bit of experience. I don't think the two brothers have been in sync for Maynooth for a couple of years, so I think Maynooth will be very happy with that performance and a 10-point margin, and looking ahead now to the final in 2 weeks' time.
Is Daniel O'Mara playing these days? I can't recall.
He is, he was playing full back there on Saturday, played well.
Yeah. What have we learned, Ger, from the Hurling Championship so far this year? Naas not going away, Maynooth still coming at them, is it?
Yeah, probably not huge amounts new, really. Naas are obviously still by far the ones to catch. This is Maynooth's third final in 4 years. 4 years, sorry, and they actually their first final, 3 years ago, they actually pushed Naas pretty hard, but then last year I think Naas were convincing winners. So yeah, they'll certainly want to be an awful lot closer. As Richard was saying there, that they seem to have got a couple of players back, albeit without David Qualter, but they brought through a couple of younger players now. They have a good experienced manager there who's into his second year, I believe, in charge there now.
Second year, yeah.
Obviously got to know the group there as well, so that's always a help. I think a second year is always a big year for any manager after kind of that initial bedding in period in the first season. So yeah, Maynooth will look to push on and cause Naas problems, but at the same time, Naas are just incredible. Like to have 6 in a row. I think we said it after maybe 3 or 4 years that you could see Naas going on and winning 10, even more titles in a row. They're just absolutely imperious, and the fear, I suppose, going into that semi-final. As much as we were trying to be respectful to Kildare and obviously respectful of the effort that they put in over the year, the fear always was that could turn into a one-sided game. And Naas with a couple of fellas back there, Simon Lacey and Derek Guerin involved as well, but still short of 3 or 4 or 5 kind of first-team players as well. Yeah, they kind of showed a standard to get to, and it's going to be an extremely difficult task for Maynooth to topple them in the final.
And Richard, I know you spoke to Tom Mullally afterwards. I suppose a familiar refrain from the Kilkenny man who manages Carlow, also a bit the structure of the Kildare Hurling Championship.
Yeah, and to be fair to him, he's not someone who'll volunteer a complaint. So he was asked a question and he answered it, but clearly, he's not happy, a little bit frustrated with the nature of the stop-start hurling championship that we have. Like Naas's last 3 games, I went back, had a look at it, were on July the 25th, then August the 27th, and then September the 27th. So basically a whole month in between each of their last 3 games, which, as he said, hurlers want to be playing, every second week pretty much. And he did raise the question of whether Kildare really want dual players, which I thought was interesting. He didn't go much further than that, but he did pose that question. And certainly when you look at the structure, it's not conducive to hurling. It's there's definitely an element of favoritism, I suppose, in terms of the football structure, the way it is, and we've spoken about that on here before. But there are better ways, I think, and maybe we'll come back to that after the club championship is finished. But yeah, he was clearly frustrated by that.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously when you look at the likes of St. Lawrence's and Kappa, who are coming through, they have a lot of dual players as well, and that's how sustainable is a hurling team if you have to play a number of footballers as well. Looking at Kappa last Friday night, they had, I think it was 3 players who I recognise anyway from their team that got to a semi-finals of the football. So that's going to be hard to sustain, I would think, Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as the years go on, it's probably going to be more dual players. I know it's an easy thing to say that obviously hurling is getting more popular, but even the players that are that little bit older, as in late teens, early 20s, that maybe did play hurling, maybe they're getting the itch now as well when they see their colleagues, playing for Broadford or playing for the likes of Kappa. I mean, as you say, look at when we watched Kappa this year in the football championship. Look at Dara Devine, look at Toby McMorland, look at the athleticism of those lads. I mean, and they're fantastic hurlers. Both have played underage for Kildare as well. So there might be lads that are thinking, geez, maybe I'm missing a trick here. If I want to get the most out of my sporting career, maybe I'll jump back into hurling. So it's going to become more and more prevalent in it. But I don't know. I just think with all the commentary around it and with the coming from the management, coming from the players, coming from the media, I feel like Mick Mullen and the rest of them, they're not going to just sit on it, because they've shown this year that they probably want to get everybody's opinion on the football championship. So it's something that I have a feeling will be opened up to a wider forum, and they'll take the feedback. The football was put to a wider forum, but the feedback didn't happen. 25% of clubs or something responded to the survey about changing the championship. So if people want change, engage. Well, and then I think it'll happen.
Do they want change? When we look at it, you have to admire somebody the likes of Brian Byrne. He's been consistently a dual player both at county and at club level for so many years, and yet he's still playing as if he's a 2-year-old. So hats off to Brian Byrne, eh?
But in a way, it's fine for the dual players in the sense that at least they've got games coming week on week.
Yeah.
But for the hurlers, those that only play club hurling, you're talking about 3 games in 9 weeks? And that's the bulk of that NACE hurling team when you look at it. It's probably, the dual issue is probably more of an issue for other clubs, but within NACE, they're just not getting the games. And they need that if they want to progress in Leinster. They need to be, well oiled by the time that comes around, and they won't be.
That's it.
It's hard to find a solution, though, is it? Like it is, because just say that the hurling championship only has that amount of games, so their solution is either run it off early in the summer and have a big gap going into the Leinster championship, and then obviously has a huge knock-on effect to the football championships, or then do you hold the hurling to later in the season, and again that has a huge knock-on with the football. So it's a difficult one to get a perfect solution.
I think you can condense it, though. You can, I said before on here, they start the hurling before the football and finish it around the same time, but you could condense it so that the hurling starts a week or two after the football and finishes like a week beforehand or something.
The other thing that Kildare do as well is, and it's not done in other counties as a kind of as a taken, is that there's a weekend off for the August bank holiday weekend. There's a weekend off in what's become a bank holiday weekend, the first weekend in September with electric picnics. So we can't have it every way. Maybe we have to use those weekends more, rather than playing games in midweek. But of course, that's a big issue for players. They want those weekends off, and you have to respect that as well.
But I
think it can give them more names or more games as well. Like there's so many different ways to it. You don't have to stick to that 2 groups of 4 in the senior as well. I mean, turn it into a larger league of 8. Seven round robin games. And then you have possibly a relegation playoff, 4 semi-finalists. Like there's opportunities there. But there's so many. There are solutions there.
Absolutely. Well, I think Kildare have to be commended as well because of the number of competitions that are now for the hurlers. You had the senior B, intermediate, junior A, junior B. So there are competitions now for every level of hurling in the county, which is good. And then at minor level, you have the same. It stretches out down to A, B, C, D, whatever it is. So hurling is on the up, and it's a small ball county now as well as a large ball county, and it leaves us with Naas and the Maynooth in the final in 2 weeks' time, and that's a repeat of last year's final. And the launch of that will be in UPMC in Clane on Friday night. Pity that it's clashing with a number of other fixtures, but look, what can you do? What can you do? Do we have the top scorers, Tommy, at this stage, or what do you want to do? Do you want to look at the team of the week or the top scorers, which you prefer? Top scorers, there you go. Jack Sheridan, not surprisingly, and Liam Dempsey. You could have a good look at those there, Richard.
Yeah, I tell you, that Sheridan fella looks like a real prospect, doesn't he?
Yeah, imagine if he was a dual player.
and young Keegan up there as well.
Yeah, true indeed. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's great to see Liam Dempsey up there as well. I think, he looked a real prospect at underage. Ayr Oak was, fantastic at under 20 level. So good to see him in there as well. But it looks highly unlikely Jack Sheridan's going to get caught unless Tom Power has one hell of a final for Maynooth.
Yeah, true.
Well, I will say a couple of things about that scores chart. So the first one is take a look at the from play. This is ranked by the total. Take a look at the from play column. Look at Johnny Byrne. And look at the season he had from play. He would be top of that from play chart. And that's a fantastic return from just an animal of a man. Like we spoke at length about Johnny Doyle last week for that Allenwood team. But like, how good was Johnny? When we talk about dual players. And I will say one thing about this, and it only I've been looking at it a little bit, and I expected it to change this time. And only one snuck in at the end. Not too many more Naas players other than Jack.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the scores that Naas are putting up, you would expect a lot more blue on that list.
Yeah, true.
So that it's just something to look at. I mean, 7 goals. I mean, look, the 35 points is one thing, because in fairness, Jack does take frees. And you see he's obviously scored 2 penalties as well. So 5-4 from play. But like 7 goals, 7-35. But look, the whole way down, you have to find Charlie Carroll. I think Fionn Maher wouldn't be too far away there. I think he's got 4 or 5 goals, but at the same time, 4 goals anyway. It's just something to look at. That if there is anybody in the county or the country that could possibly shut down Jack, and just get that little doubt creeping in. But sure, Jesus, that's easier said than done.
But you mentioned Johnny Byrne there. Look at Mark Delaney and indeed Declan Flaherty there as well. And of course, 2 men who I suppose might be from clubs who were the highlight clubs in the county. Rhys Gavin up there from Moorfield and Frank Bass from Confi.
Absolutely, it was Frank's ever reliable there for Confi.
Yeah,
I mean he's unerring from frees at the best of times. Obviously involved with the county setup as well, and he's been up there from the very start.
There you go. That's our scoring charts there. Jack Sheridan there topping at the moment and unlikely to be caught unless there is a miracle. And miracles do happen. We have a team of the week, Ger, by our sponsors.
Yes, indeed, the loading and lifting team of the week for the Senior Hurling Championship. So based on the 2 semi-finals that took place there on Saturday. So it's Sean Bean of Maynooth who made that penalty save in goal. Simon Lacey, I think it was his first championship appearance of the season, so straight into the team of the week there for the county man at cornerback. Eire O'Curraqueel's James Dolan then at fullback with Matt Eustace of Maynooth. Keane Bourne of Naas, Martin Quilty of Maynooth, and Paul Dolan of Eire O'Curraqueel in the halfbacks, with Evan O'Brien of Naas and Oran Byrne of Maynooth in midfield. 2 Maynooth men then in the half-forward line, Tom Power and Cathal McCabe, along with Gary Johnson of Eire O'Curraqueel, and 2 Naas men then in the full-forward line, the aforementioned Jack Sheridan alongside Fionn Maher, and then a Sean O'Neill of Eire O'Curraqueel that completes the team.
Interesting team indeed. That's the Senior Hurling Championship Team of the Week, the Kildare National Senior Hurling Championship Team of the Week. We had a great game on Sunday, lads, in the B Championship. 2 great teams, Leixlip winning that one in almost 6 minutes of injury time. Leixlip 117-10, 118. Did you get a chance to look at that one, Richard?
Yeah, most of it, Pat, with some brilliant commentary on Clubber, I must say. So a little, I feel a bit sorry. I don't remember who he was now. I feel a bit sorry for Leixlip in a way. They keep losing these big games by a point in both football and hurling, and they'll be kicking themselves, I think, over this one. They were ahead, I think, 4 or 5 points in the first half at one stage, and after Clane had come back by half time, Leixlip were ahead again 4 or 5 points, but you got to hand it to Clane. I mean, they I think had a bit more strength and depth on the bench. Like Sean Christensen coming in towards the end was a huge factor. But they just kept playing away, and it was them in the ascendancy at the end. I think they got back the 4 points and then went behind again in injury time, if I remember.
Yeah. Before
getting those couple of late scores, and fantastic for them to get back playing senior. And again, back to the dual point, some good dual players there. Hugh Muldoon played fantastically well at midfield. The fullback, Albert, who got the Man of the Match award, rightly so. He's some player. I think he's only 18 or 19. He's some
18,
So, and then you have Paddy McKenna, who county goalkeeper, and he top scores in a county final, and that was some goal he got. It was a lovely quote from him that suggested he was only taking a breather in a corner forward. He was playing mainly out around the field as a playmaker, kind of. And he said he was sucking in air through his toenails at that point and was taking a breather in a corner forward. So it's a lovely phrase. I've never heard that one before.
No, that's a new one. That's a Clane one. That's a Clane one.
Yeah.
Speaking of goalkeepers, there were a number of occasions, at least 3, maybe 4 times, when Mark Doyle saved points, which was crucial, and nothing. It showed the experience that he had. He's understudied to Paddy McKenna for quite a while with the county team, but the experience there, not just accepting the ball is going to go over the bar, got the stick up, and I think there was an extension on that stick because he took a couple that looked like they were going over.
He was fantastic, and it's great to see the 2 of them being able to kind of dovetail in different positions for Clane, because as you say, Mark Doyle's got to be one of the most patient men in the county in terms of his county career.
Well, I suppose Paddy had to do the same. Paddy McKenna
Yeah,
had to do the
we've
same
seen
when Paul
that
Dermody was
before.
there as well. So, it's and if you look at Noel Skehan in Kilkenny, was it 9 All-Irelands he won? But I think he only maybe played in 3 of them.
That'll be well before my time, Pat.
Well, but you know, you have to. People, you know, there was television and there are replays and all like that. We'd get you to do some research. Ger, a great battle between Tom Malone of Clane and Dara Melville of Leixlip. That was probably the battle of the competition, or of the final, really. And the fact that Melville didn't score too many from play, obviously was a help to Clane.
Like he was obviously the danger man to try and shut down as best as Clane could, and they did a fairly reasonable job. Obviously, he was still fairly accurate from his frees, get the scoreboard ticking over in that manner. But yeah, as you say, kind of from play, he was restricted. So yeah, you'd have to say Clane did well there. But you know, we're just talking about the dual players there and how you know the highs that sport can bring you. You're thinking of someone there like Jack Travers and a few other down on the Leixlip side in the last couple of weeks. Ben is absolutely, and you know that to have suffered 2 heartbreaking championship losses now in the space of a week for those kind of Leixlip lads is tough going, and sport isn't always kind to you, and you don't always get out what you put in. And unfortunately for those Leixlip lads, they've got 2 horrible defeats. But I suppose that's the nature of sport. When you have an exciting, tight, close final like that, and to have a winner, you have to have a loser. And you know, Leixlip will have to go back and you know, they'll be strong favourites, I'm sure, with Moorfield coming down again. No disrespect for them, they'll obviously benefit from having that year at senior, but Leixlip will start that Senior B Championship, I would imagine, next year as strong favourites. But that's 12 months away. It's a long time away, and you know, a lot of hurling to be done before that comes around. But on the flip side of that, again, Clane, great to have them back at senior level. You know, great club. They've done a lot of work there to try and bounce back, and they've got strong players in as well. And I'm sure they'll hold their own next year senior level.
Absolutely, yeah. And Tommy, a great advertisement for hurling in the county.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it was pure excitement, and I think we were saying that, like Pat, you had said like last week as well, how good this was going to be. We could see it coming, and it really is a good advertisement, because again, this final, it wasn't a dead rubber, as they call it, because as we've always said, like, if Naas are in the final, Naas can't get promoted, etc. So this was a full on winner takes all. Leixlip are going to be devastated, but they were so good this year in that Senior B Championship that they have to take the positives from it.
Yeah,
I know it's difficult. Like, they've only just come down as well from senior, like, and they had such a difficult year. Last year. Clane are going back up, and it's taken Clane a few years to get back up. Senior B is no joke. And the people realize that. Like, look how well Larry's have hurled how well they hurled this year. And they're going to look forward into next year with confidence, thinking, geez, we can give this a right rattle now. Because there's definitely a few teams there that can come up out of it. So it's just a brilliant competition.
And it's funny that the talk around Clane was that nobody wanted to manage the team at the start of the year, and Christopher Bonus, who played with Kildare under Joe Quaid, he took them for a while, but then he went off on to serve with the United Nations, and Willie Banks took over. So it's only a short time that Willie Banks had to get a team together, and you have to say he did a great job.
Yeah, and like, if you look at, like, there's always pressure in Clane, no matter what, whether it's football or hurling, whether it's underage. There's pressure on, because Clane is a monster of a club. Yeah. Saying that, how long is it since they won a senior championship?
1922.
Yep, I was just going to say 103 years. So, but like,
it was a good game that day, Pat, was
it?
He was on the terrace that day.
But and aren't they still? They're still the top title holder, as in they've won the most titles.
Yeah,
they won the most hurling titles in Kildare, and yet they haven't won it in 103 years. So that's something. But there is pressure there. They're a massive club, and that is where, I've said it before, that is where they need to be in that senior hurling championship, because there's so many young players coming through at underage. There's so many teams that they have involved. That's where they need to aspire to. So they're back there now. Now they need to work on staying there and being competitive.
And they'll be representing Kildare and Leinster as well. I don't know whether that's at the junior level or intermediate level.
Junior.
Is it? Yeah, I thought that, because Kildare don't have a representation on the intermediate anymore, since Naas were promoted after winning the All-Ireland. So Kildare don't have a representation.
They need to win junior.
Yeah.
Need to win junior out to get back in. So,
Tommy, I'm just making sure that after watching the golf and what happens, I know you spend a lot of time on the terraces in Kildare. So I hope you didn't learn anything from the crowds that were at the Ryder Cup now. And I mean, nothing derogatory will come forward from your watching of the Ryder Cup, I'm sure.
No, absolutely not. No, again, you could look at the Irish Open. That was an example of how a crowd should conduct themselves.
Yeah.
Like at that Irish Open that day, you had thousands and thousands cheering on Rory, but there's nobody booing your man from Sweden. There was nobody booing him, So, but Pat, I don't need any lessons of how to conduct myself in the terrace. I am as PG-13 as they come.
There you go. Lads, he's been at a lot of golf of late. We'll have to keep an eye on him, How does he do it? That's what we keep on saying. How does he do it? We have a team of the week, have we, Tommy, Ger, for the Senior B? And not surprisingly, it's represented by Clane and Leixlip. Ger.
Yeah, so Mark Doyle, as we mentioned there, from Clane and Goal, and again, of course, is sponsored by that Loading and Lifting, the Kildare Nationalist Senior B Hurling Championship Team of the Week. Ryan Doyle of Leixlip, Dan Colbert, who got man of the match from Clane. He comes from good stock, actually. His father was a fantastic minor footballer, I think, for club 2 Mile House as well as county. Michael right. Cahallan then of Clane competes the full-back line. 2 Clane men in the half-backs then, Sean Shanahan and Tom Malone on either side of Conor Burke of Leixlip. Hugh Muldoon of Clane partners James Canning of Leixlip in the centre of the field. Leixlip dominate the half-forward line there with 2 men, Jack Travers and Darren Melville, alongside Sean Malone. And then further forward again, Paddy McKenna and Keane Shanahan of Clane and Killian Harrington of Leixlip completing that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the weekend started, the Super Weekend of Hurling started on the Friday night with the junior final. That was between Leixlip and Kappa, resulted in a win for Leixlip, 4-13 to 3-13. Leixlip were on song, doing very well for quite a considerable time, but fourth quarter really, by performance by Kappa brought them right back into the game. The likes of you mentioned them earlier, indeed, Tommy, Dara Devine, Toby McMorland and Adam Mooney from Freeze brought them right back into it, and it was a nail-biting finish. But the likes of John Dorn, John Roach, and indeed Brian Mickelson, who was the top scorer for Leixlip, ensured that the men from St Mary's would win the junior championship. Whereas the B Junior Championship, that was won by Naas, 3-13 to 15 points. A bit of a tight affair, but Naas seemed to be always in control in that one. But it's good to see the men from the south of the county, St. Lawrence, is getting in there into a final. And I'm sure both they and Kappa will be back representing their clubs with style in the years to come. All right, is that hurling out of the way, lads? I don't mean out of the way. Is that hurling covered for this week?
Pat, yeah. We joked a couple of weeks ago about having a combined dual player team of the year, but it's something that I think we might sit down and throw together. Just as something, because if you I'm looking at the players that are popping up every week on the team of the week, and you're thinking about them as dual players. So just for our listeners and viewers, that might be something, an interesting little project we'll have a look at. The best dual 15 of the 2025 championship.
Oh, Tommy, we've had enough wars trying to pick the single players of the year in hurling and football. What are we going to do with the dual? That's certainly, we'll definitely need your man across the water to sort that one out. Yeah, but it's a great idea. It's a great idea. And the late and great Jimmy McGee would always have to have a team somewhere like that. So I think you're being inspired by the late and great Jimmy McGee. That's a great idea, Tommy.
Thanks very much, Pat.
You're very welcome. Anyway, let's move on. And what a weekend of football action we have. We have the 2 semi-finals in the Joe Malamotor Senior Football Championship. We have the 2 semi-finals in the Intermediate Championship and the final in the Junior Championship. So who wants to start with what? Look at there you have the quarterfinals of the Joe Malamotor Senior Football Championship, Sarsfields and Johnstown Bridge. That was a good one. So too was Selbridge and Moorfield. Carron at High, that was quite close. And indeed, there was great excitement between Clane and Naas. So that means that we have 2 semi-finalists, Sarsfields versus Athy. That's in Cedros in Convis Park on Sunday afternoon at 4:15. That one is being covered by Clubber. And you have Selbridge versus Naas, also in Cedros in Convis Park. That one starting at 2 p.m. That one covered by TG Carr. So if you can't get along, and try and do get along, you will get to see those games, one streaming and the other on terrestrial TV. Ger, do you want to take the first one, which is Selbridge versus Naas?
Yeah, I should mention, I think both games are covered on KFM as well for those who can't make it to a screen as well. I'd be shocked if I didn't mention that. So yeah, those two games on Sunday afternoon as well on KFM. But yeah, look, it's fantastic, I think, and it's been the last couple of years, I know there's generally been kind of an intermediate game on a Saturday and maybe a senior game following it and then the same on the Sunday. But I think it's just great to have these two games on back-to-back on Sunday, a real super Sunday of action in St. Collins Park, and that's not to take away from the intermediate semi-finals that I'm sure we'll discuss shortly. They're going to be excellent games as well, but this is the top 4 teams in the county, not just in this year, but over the last couple of years. The same semi-final lineup as last year, albeit with different pairings, but there's no doubt about it that these top 4 are a cut above the rest, and it would have been a bit of a surprise that barring somehow along the line that they met maybe in a quarterfinal or something, that this wouldn't be the final 4. So to get to this stage now is, it's really exciting to look ahead to these two games. Selbridge and Naas, they've given us, I wouldn't say two kind of massively exciting games in the final in the last couple of years, but certainly it finished up exciting in terms of very, very close and going into the final stages. But two real cagey affairs, two sides that obviously know each other inside out. There's so many teammates from county level playing across the two teams, and would have played in underage teams and leading into the senior county team and all that sort of stuff. So they do know each other very, very well, and that sometimes can lead to things being cancelled out. But we have seen this year games being more open, more stretched with the 2-point rule and the 3-up rule. So it'll be interesting to see if that has a knock-on effect in this game. Yeah, look, it's hard to pick a winner. 1 point between the two of them the last couple of years. Naas getting the better of it. Selbridge will be absolutely gunning for an opportunity to get one over on them. I think looking back at those games in the last kind of couple of years, Aaron Brown is somebody, for a variety of reasons, hasn't really fired in those two games. I think certainly 2 years ago he was carrying out a pretty bad injury and probably did well to get out on the pitch at all for that first of the two finals between them. He's somebody that was probably targeting a big game. He's had a fantastic season again this year. He's done really well leading that Selbridge forward line, and I'm sure he'd love to put on a show now in St. Collins Park and national television as well. So he's definitely somebody that I would imagine would be pushing for a big game. But Naas, they really returned to form in that game against Clane. They were much sharper in their attack, the way they finished off chances. They have that inside forward line of Kerwin, Byrne and Sinky. It's absolutely phenomenal. But the real battles are going to be the ones around the middle third that I'm looking forward to. The likes of Elliot Byrne, he maybe will be marked by either Niall O'Regan if he plays on one side or Dino Donoghue on the other. That's going to be just perpetual motion between that kind of pairing, because they'll just be up and down the field. Paddy McDermott then will be probably a wing back for Naas. It'll probably be Kevin Flynn maybe on him. And again, two of the most rapid players in the county going up and down the field as well. So there's just so many matchups to look forward to, and it's just going to be the first of two cracking encounters on Sunday, I think.
Yeah, and Richard, both teams had a little bit of a stutter. They didn't get everything their own way through the group stages, and Naas lost indeed to Sarsfields.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about that one before and how much weight we should put on it. But yeah, it's still, I think, not even just that they lost to Sarsfields, but they have looked vulnerable in terms of conceding goals. More so probably earlier in the campaign than of late, but I don't think we've seen Naas really firing in the way that we've seen them in previous years, and I think there's still a bit of a settling in period for Philly McMahon perhaps, and we spoke about the Clane manager in Hurling coming in late. He's obviously come in very late as well. So Selbridge, yeah, they've had their ups and downs. I think you got to give them credit. I think this is their 12th semi-final in a row. Ger might correct me on that one, but I think it's 12 in a row. So they keep bouncing back. I mean, let's face it, they haven't progressed. They haven't won a final, and they haven't even been in that many finals over that period. But they keep coming back every year, so you got to give them big credit for that. I think this one is as much a psychological battle as anything for them. And I keep thinking of the Mayo teams and how they kept coming back but didn't quite get over the line. And I think you'd love to see, nothing against Naas, you'd love to see Selbridge get over the line in this one, and they certainly have the talent to do it. Yeah. As Ger said, he's mentioned all the big names there. They have the talent. I don't think there's an awful lot between the two teams when you line them up. one against the other. I just feel, you know, if you were to put a gun to my head, I just feel Naas have a little bit more in the forward line with that, you know, that inside trio in particular, the three county lads. Then they've got Hannafin outside that, you know, they've the likes of Paddy McDermott, Elliot Byrne bombing forward as well. And I think they've got a better bench than Celbridge have. So when you take that and you take, I think, the psychological aspects to it, you know, for Celbridge, then that might just outweigh the hunger that you'd expect Celbridge to have. You know, I've gone for Naas, but you know, it's a tough call, to be honest.
Tommy, where Celbridge might have an advantage is with the manager, because Micheál McDermott, hugely experienced manager, obviously won in his native county of Cavan, then went down to Clare, did so in Meath, and here he is now still trying to win a championship in Kildare. But when you put that, his experience and I suppose his record up against Philly McMahon, who's a rookie manager, I suppose you might say, Celbridge might have the advantage there.
Yeah, but as you said, Pat, he's still trying to win a county championship. You know, and obviously that it's going to hurt him as much as anybody because of the experience that he has. And you've seen his interviews they're a good listen. You know, I've listened to a few of them back on Clubber and different ones, and like you can see where he is, and he's very focused, and he's very grounded. He's probably the right man in a way to have in there at the moment, because you know their mission is Naas, and their mission has been Naas for a long time. But we see, is it better for them to meet them in the semi-final than the final? Is there slightly less pressure? I don't know. I think maybe there is. County finals a big day. You know, I mean, you're going to have double, triple the crowd at a county final, and then you'll even have at these semi-finals. That's just the way these things work. You know, it's just people are interested in going into it. But there's a lot of scar tissue there, lads, for this Celbridge team. And if you look at the Celbridge team for the last few years, it's pretty much all of the lads that are still there. So that can go two ways. You know, there are two ways. There's scar tissue there. Do Naas have, like Richard said, it's a psychological battle, which it absolutely is. You know, honestly, I'm more worried about. I'm more concentrating on the players. I don't really care about the manager side of it. I know there's a bedding in period, and you know, obviously Micheál McDermott is so experienced and Philly isn't, and there's all the stuff that we've said, but it happens on the pitch. You know, and there's a lot of influence from the sideline, and especially tactics and calls during games and stuff. But it's the lads on the pitch, and the Celbridge lads, nearly 1 to 15, have been there for the last 2 or 3 years against these Naas teams. I don't think, with the characters that Celbridge have on the field, I don't think any of those lads are the type of lads that are going to be intimidated by the previous results. I think those lads wanted Naas as quickly as possible. You know, they want this game. They wanted them in the semi-final, final, wherever they were going to meet. If I was a Celbridge man, I'd be backing them. I'd be backing their manager, and I think they should be absolutely relishing it. Because Naas are, I'm not going to say brittle at the moment, because the things that have gone wrong for them have been very small. I don't think we can put too much on that quarterfinal. I'd love to say we can. That last match in the group. I'd love to say we can put a lot on it, but at the same time, we saw the Naas team that turned out. Naas swatted Clane away the last time. Mm-hmm. They gave Clane as much rope as possible. They gave them a chance to stay. Clane had opportunities that they missed, but then Clane just put the boot down on the neck and they just went for it. And Naas have that extra gear. I genuinely think it'll be an absolute cracker. I'm fascinated to see how that Celbridge defence lines up against some of those forwards. Who marks who marks what space. Don't ask me to call it, Pat.
Okay, I won't ask you to call. We will in a few moments, though. We'll be asking each of you who's going to be in the final. The other game is absolutely intriguing as well. Sarsfields versus Athy. Former manager of Athy now on the sideline with Sarsfields, and two homegrown managers responsible for Athy. Both teams, Ger, had a searching, I suppose, semi-final or quarter-final.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for different reasons, you know, the tie, they didn't fire particularly in the first half. I was listening to actually Kevin Feely speaking on a different podcast that he was saying that kind of they played better against the wind in the second half, and that was obviously reflected in the scores that they got. The 3 goals were crucial, but I mean, the first half performance by a long way won't be good enough. But again, that was, look, it was difficult weather conditions, and again, just Kevin kind of noted that maybe they were forcing some of the shots, but who knows what sort of weather there could be at the weekend, whether it's weather forecast might not be great at all. So, I mean, they're sort of stuff that they'll have to deal with as well this weekend. Sarsfields as well, obviously that they were a heavily impacted game with the wind, their game against Johnstown Bridge, but it was their mental strength that really shone through in the second half. You know, they knew just once they started clipping over those shots that they could start getting back into the game, just eat away at that lead. They did miss Ben Lopeman, I think, in that game, certainly in the first half of that game. Whether he is back for the semi-final or not, I'm not sure. These two teams, so maybe this isn't the right thing to say, but I get the impression whenever I watch them play, they don't really like each other a whole lot. There's been some real battles between them down through the years, and sometimes it's crossed the line in the final stages of those games on both sides. And they're just two teams that rile each other up, I think. And you know, there's going to be such a huge amount at stake on Sunday again, and I could see this one again being a hugely tight affair. You know, both games are, you know, you're tossing a coin really, and in terms of who's going to win it. Sarsfields probably have had the better performance over the year, but Ben Lopeman will be a big loss for them in a close game if he's not unavailable. You know, Barry Coffey come on in the previous game against Johnstown Bridge and did a really good job in getting them over the line with their frees, but Lopeman has just been top class this year. Of course, the flip side of that is they've had Ben McCormack back. He got a game under the belt against Johnstown Bridge. He did some good things that day, some other things that weren't so great, but definitely he'll have had the benefit of getting a game under the belt, and obviously anywhere near his best. He's a match winner as well, so he's a big boost for Sarsfields. But you know, a tie brought through a number of kind of young players in the last couple of years. We spoke about Padraig Spillane as well the last day. He missed that quarter final. He will be another big loss for a tie, you know, in a game of this magnitude. Both sides want to have as many of their top players available to them as possible. And then as well, just I suppose the other thing to mention obviously is the managerial thing, because you couldn't mention this game without talking about Vinnie Walsh as well, and John Doran as well is involved with the Sarsfields team and the management team, with Vinnie having done really well with a tie. You know, Vinnie will obviously know the Athy team inside out. The Athy side will have a fair idea of what he's asking of the Sarsfields players as well. So all that knowledge just I think adds to the feeling that it's going to be an incredibly tight and close game. And I think both matches are going to come down probably to injury time, you know, probably a kick of a ball, and it's going to be whoever comes up with the big moments, and those crucial, intense, highly pressurized moments are going to be the ones who find their way to a win.
And Richard, two different times in the I suppose the run up to the semi-finals, Sarsfield had that psychological win over Naas, whereas Athy succumbed to Selbridge. So will those two results have any bearing on Sunday?
I don't know if they'll have a bearing as such. I think it certainly would tend to lead me to favour Sarsfields a little bit, in that, you know, they did win that big game, although, you know, with the rider that we keep putting on that particular game against Naas, I think I'm at a slight disadvantage. I didn't see the quarter final between Sarsfields and Johnstown Bridge, but just looking at it online in terms of updates and the match reports from it, I was quite surprised at how, I know there was a big win factor, I was quite surprised that they went so far behind in that one, and that kind of reduced my my confidence in them a little bit after seeing them earlier in the campaign. But I just think Sarsfields have a bit more about them in terms of freshness, in terms of a new injection this year. They've got the two Ryans playing really well. They've got Ty Coey playing some fantastic football, and he is a powerhouse around the midfield, and they'll need him in that particular area at the weekend. And then you've got the injection of youth with O'Donovan, and you've got Carney playing really well. Ben Lopeman would be a big loss, but as Ger says, you know, you Spillane on the other side who probably will be marking him. He's a huge loss as well if he's not there. So I just think Sarsfields have a little bit more in terms of depth and in terms of the different angles they can hit a tie at. But, you know, a bit like the other game, it's going to be so hard to call. You're going to ask me for my prediction, or you can probably guess it at this stage, but it's going to be a tight call.
Later. And Tommy, I suppose Sarsfields would be a little bit worried about the nerviness that was in their defence in the first half, particularly against Johnstown Bridge. And when you have an attack which includes the Kelly brothers and the Kelly namesake and Mourne and indeed the likes of Feely coming forward, that's going to put pressure on a defence that might be nervy.
Yeah, it would be, but I don't think Sarsfields they'll address that. They'll look at that and they'll say absolutely, like they'll understand the wind was a big factor and 2-pointers were a factor and this, that, and the other. But they're going what they need to take out of that was how they won. Because I was the same with Richard. At halftime I was just looking at this thinking, yeah, it's an 8 to 10 point win maybe. But Jesus, Sarsfield's like, can they get a goal or two, or can they get a goal? And I couldn't see them pulling that back, and the way they did it, I mean, what they're going to take out of that. I mean, what do both of these teams take out of those quarterfinals? Athy can take a lot of negatives as well from their Cara win, but they can also take some positives. The fact that they did get the job done, and that they scored those goals, and they scored those goals because they went back to what they're good at, which is counter-attacking, fast breaking that first line, and getting up the field quickly. Whereas in the first half, again, maybe because of the wind, they were a little bit apprehensive about kicking the ball forward. But they were very slow, and everything was moved slowly. And Cara defended well because they had the opportunity to defend well because Athy were slow. But when Athy had that bit of injection to pace, so as you said, the likes of Barry Kelly making those runs off the ball to create space, which he's brilliant at. For then the likes of Colin Moore and Niall Kelly and these lads to kick the ball over the bar. I think Athy possibly need a few more lads to step up as regards scoring. I think they're lacking a little bit. Outside of obviously Morning and Niall Kelly. They're always looking to get it to the shooter. I understand that's the way the game is at the moment, but we saw it in Maynooth a few weeks ago where they were looking to get it to their 1 or 2 shooters, and it ended up biting them in the ass. So from that point of view, I think Athy just need to go back to what they're good and raw, which is just aggressive, hard running, aggressive in the tackle. There will be bite to it. Like we saw the bite that was in Athy versus Naas last year. It does add to it. Now, did it help Athy that day? No. It kind of gave Naas a bit of a kick. Sarsfields are the only team, I think, in the championship that have won every game. So that's something to come in when you look at the fact that Selbridge and Naas and Athy are still there. Maybe I'm wrong. I think Sarsfields are the only team that have won every game. Athy lost to Selbridge.
Pretty sure you're right. Yeah.
Selbridge drew with Johnstown Bridge and Naas lost to Sarsfield. So, there's something like that has them up there. But, they're 2 absolute cracking semi-finals, lads.
All right. It's time to you-know-what. So, Ger, your 2 finalists are?
You pick me first.
You're the boss.
There's probably teams hoping that I won't name them here now. Look, both of them are tops of a coin. Both semi-finals with different pairings went to. You couldn't be surprised if that was to happen again. There's just a cigarette paper between both of them. So that's a long way around saying I don't really know. Maybe, as some of the lads have said there, the shooters possibly just edging towards Sarsfields in the second game. But again, absolutely nothing in it. And just on the back of their wins over the last couple of years and finding a way to win when it really matters and in tight games before. So from the outside of the county, people maybe think Naas, are as dominant in the football as they are in the hurling. It's certainly not the case because while the hurlers are blitzing teams away, Naas have had some real dogfights in the football side of things over the last couple of years, but they've always found a way to win. So on just the back of that, I'd give them a very tentative tip against Selbridge. So I'll go Naas v Sarsfields for the final, but it could very easily be Athy v Selbridge.
That was the longest 2 words ever. Richard, what are your 2? What are your 2 words?
Naas and Sarsfields.
Yes, well, Tommy.
I'm trying to think how many people I know in each club. How much trouble can I get in? I've relations.
You get in trouble by not
couldn't get any more trouble them.
Oh no! I get in trouble for tipping them. People don't want me to tip them.
Yeah.
That's nobody wants me tipping them. Do you know what? I would like to go for Athy, because I just think they have it in them to get over the line, but I can't take my mind off the forwards the Sarsfields have. And I'm going to go with Sarsfields against Selbridge.
Sarsfields. Oh, there you go.
No going into Kavanagh's for me in a couple of weeks.
There you go. Those semi-finals are on Saturday afternoon, Friday night, and Saturday. Or what did I say? Saturday afternoon. I should have said Sunday afternoon, isn't it? Yeah. I should have said that. Yeah. Okay. So the intermediate final, the National Electrical Intermediate semi-finals, then they're on Friday night and Saturday afternoon. Both games are covered. Are they also on KFM, Ger?
Yeah, there'll be some coverage of it. Yeah.
Okay, well then on Friday night we have Salins versus Milltown. That deserved, I suppose, an afternoon throw in, and the other one then is St. Lawrence's versus 2 Mile House on Saturday afternoon. Richard, Salins, Milltown.
Yeah, the closer I get to this, the less confident I am. If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have said Salins are going to win this, no bother. But this is arguably the game of the weekend. Who knows? When you take the 2 senior games, the 2 intermediate and the junior, these are going to be 5 fantastic games. Salins were tested, and again, I didn't see the quarterfinals. I was away, but from all accounts, Salins were probably tested a little bit more in that one, at least for a period of time, than perhaps any other game other than the Towers game, where actually that was closer than the scoreline might have suggested. But Salins have just got talent all over that field, and they've got the Daltons, and I've said it before, I think having Colin Dalton with a year of inter-county experience is making a big difference to them this year. But Milltown, you can't write off Milltown based on their performances to date. And you saw it against Leixlip again, coming back and winning that one by a point. These guys are battle hardened at this stage, not just this year, but across the last couple of years between junior titles and Leinster junior titles. Got to the semi-final of this last year as well. I think this is going to be a really close game and a harder one to call than maybe people would think, looking at Salins's results in particular over the course of the championship. I probably slightly still favour Salins, but again, not particularly confident about that one either. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Milltown win this. I think there's a lot of pressure on Salins as well, as the other point I'd make, and it's a bit like, I'll say the same about Grange in the junior final. Salins have been there or thereabouts and expected to get out of intermediate for a few years now. Milltown maybe still see themselves as progressing towards that point and maybe have a little bit less pressure on them and can enjoy the occasion a little bit more. But I'm going to talk myself around from back in Salins here, but I think there is pressure on Salins, and I think this is going to be really, really tight.
The other one is going to be very tight as well, Ger. 2 Mile House and St. Lawrence's, not much between them either.
Absolutely, and they're 2 sides that have had various times through the championship, fairly significant bumps along the way. So they've done well to find themselves here. St. Lawrence has had that really tough game against Castledermot to come through the quarterfinal. Probably a little bit fortuitous, obviously, the way Castledermot slipped up just in the final action of the game. You can see that 3-up indiscretion that gave Lawrence a bit of an out, but then they dominated in extra time. So look, they're a young team, St. Lawrence's, that they've had to come down. Richard has that excellent stat that it's gone back to 2009 since the team won the intermediate championship, having been relegated the year before. So it's extremely difficult to do. And just the feeling I think with St. Lawrence's is they're still going through a bit of a building process. We mentioned dual players as well. They would have had a fair few players playing in that final last weekend. I think most notably at all, I saw one of the O'Dwyers, I think, scoring double figures in that county final last week on the Hurling. So they're a young side, and I think they're growing. 2 Mile House come in, and they're someone who's got better with every game, pretty much. They did need Didier Codonier to have the game of his life, losing the last day to get over Rathangan, but that was a fantastic win. That was a really eye-catching result against the Rathangan side who had got to the semi-finals last year and had been very impressive all the way through. So, to have won that game, Didier Codonier had the game of his life, as they say, with the shooting, but to only concede 110 against the Rathangan side, who had shown so much variety and ability in their attack up to that point, was very impressive. And they have some stalwarts still there. Peter Kelly is obviously well known. Willie Burke is still there. So they do have a few men. Chris Healy is back on form this year as well too. So they've got players who have scaled
Keely.
in All Ireland. Yeah, and Keely as well. Yeah, Marcus Kiley is another one. Tony O'Connor as well. But they have survivors from that. 20 was early 2014 when they won the All Ireland Junior in Croke Park and won an intermediate title then as well. Lost an intermediate final as well in heartbreaking fashion. Was that back in 2016, I think, against Round Towers when it was in the depths of injury time. So like to have players who have been through it all, obviously relegation from senior as well. So yeah, they've great experience, and I think the experience probably will just get the edge on kind of the youthful exuberance of St. Lawrence's. And to be honest, probably another year in intermediate will do St. Lawrence's no harm. But obviously that's not the way you take it, because I mean, you take your opportunity to get out of intermediate when it comes along, because it's a difficult thing to do. But yeah, just the feeling of experience, I think, just has me edging towards 2 Mile House. But yeah, again, a close one.
Tommy, Salons have quite a number of stars, but you've been impressed by Milltown as a team, and as quite a young team.
Yeah, like quite a young team, and as Richard said again, a battle-hardened group of young lads as well as old lads. It's not like I heard somebody like mention a while ago, God, it's great that Milltown are bringing through the likes of young Paddy O'Donoghue and young this and young that. These lads have been there for the last 3 years, from a young age. The lads that have won the junior, kind of came in the year after they got relegated, I think, or maybe the year they did get relegated that year.
And a good minor team as well.
Yeah, I mean, but they're there as a group, like they are. I mean, the way they win their matches, to be playing Division 1 football next year. I mean, if you said that 2 years ago, that Milltown be up in Division 1 in back-to-back intermediate semi-finals, these lads, they're no joke, and Salons are going to get their fill of it, I think, at the weekend. But I will say, like, about Salons is that they have been impressive, and even when they've been under pressure, because they didn't have the best first half against Suncroft, and Suncroft really put it up to them. But in the second half, Salons just probably realised how good they are and kicked on. Big thing for Salons last day was the return of Keane Grimes from suspension.
Yeah.
I think he only got the 1 match suspension for that incident against Ballyteague, but he's a huge player for them. I think he's their second top scorer from play. He has a serious boot on him. We talk about Didier Cordonnier for 2 Mile House. I think anybody watching Salons over the last couple of years, and I think as soon as these new rules came in, I'd say Keane was licking his lips, and it seems to be he's the man to take on these long distance shots. Did he come on at half time last day and he scored 1-3? I think he's huge. I think he's just as important as the Daltons for that team. An absolutely massive player, and I think he might be the difference in getting them over the line. Again, Salons, they haven't made a final they didn't make that final for the last few years, and they were disappointed when they fell, and it was the biggest news in the Intermediate Championship every time they did fall. Like the last couple of years, and the way they've gone down, like even going back to that Castledermot match, what was it, 3 years ago now, that semi-final, should nearly had it won at half time. 10 points up, I think, 11 points up at half time, and Castledermot came back and beat them. And then there seems to be that form going on every year. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Milltown put together a 60-minute performance and Salons missed 10 or 15 minutes at some stage and are caught in the hop, because Milltown don't let up, and we've seen that from the way they've won their matches. So I'm not calling it just yet, but it is going to be a cracker, as is the second one, obviously.
Yeah, 2 Mile House and St. Lawrence's. Obviously, you've seen both quite regularly in the past few months. The experience that 2 Mile House might have, would that just be the difference between the sides?
Yeah, it could be. I thought until Ger started speaking there, I thought I was going to be I'll go in now. I'll go with 2 Mile House at this. I get one up on the lads who are clearly going to go for Larry's. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of
paper this morning, Tommy.
I have this stupid thing here. It's never.
I'm already on the 2 Mile House bandwagon.
The big thing for me in that game against Ratangan, Didier's kicking was absolutely phenomenal. It was out of this world. Again, it shows you why lads should be kicking points no matter win or not from 50-55 meters if you have a boot on you. 60 meters, why not? But it was the 2 Mile House defense that day. That was a serious Rathangan. I tipped Rathangan for intermediate championship this year. Tipped them from the start, and was still tipping them up to last week because I thought their forwards are excellent and they had an excellent midfield. But 2 Mile House completely shut them down. 2 Mile House are hard and they're big. Saw that against Round Towers, kind of properly up close. I was kind of like just looking at them thinking they're a lot bigger than I thought. And it's been said, like, there's a few of those defenders. They're big lads because Rathangan are the small team. And they hit hard, and as you said, they're experienced. And I don't know where Adam Keneally plays, because he finds himself in the half back line. He finds himself in the full back line, and he's hitting lads. He's turning over ball.
Hard to tackle. He's hard to tackle.
The length of the field. He's hard to tackle, but he's hard in the tackle. He turns over a lot of ball from that ball that he tracks back, and he gets it up quickly. And then he has the likes, the Cashman and these lads around him, and O'Connor and Peter Kelly coming in. And then they're getting up, and look at Chris Healy the last day, coming out of the forward line, almost acting like a quarterback, the way he's setting up play. So they just 2 Mile House throw the shackles off, and I don't blame the lads for going for them. But Larry's the last day, dead and buried, didn't give up, and it was in extra time. There was only one winner kind of in extra time once Larry's got going. The TJ Nolan, Felix Lawler, Adam Steed, all these lads suddenly the big lads anyway, they suddenly seemed like they were a foot taller, when things went their way and the game turned. So if those lads can get an upper hand on that 2 Mile House defence, then Larry's, who have been written off, by the way, by all of us all year, because they didn't come in all guns blazing, showing that they should be in senior, we wrote them off. I'm writing them off again, though.
Okay, right.
Not to write them off, but I think they've definitely been inconsistent. And I think 2 Mile House are a real momentum team. Like, whether it's good or bad, like they've been in a relegation final, if you remember last year. The year before that, they were in the semi-final. The year before that, they were bottom of their group. So they're a real up and down team. But once they get momentum going, and the other thing is when you look ahead of this championship, you'd have said maybe Towers will be one of the favourites. You'd have said Rathangan, certainly after the first game or two, you'd have said Rathangan are going to be right up there. 2 Mile House have beaten both of those in this winning run that they're on. So, for me, and I think Larry's are inconsistent. I think they're a younger group. I don't think you really know what you're going to get out of Larry's this weekend. I think you know what you're going to get out of 2 Mile House. Whether they can execute, enough. They've got good forwards around the place, but they've got so much energy as well. Tony O'Connor was one you mentioned there, as well as Keneally. Keneally, of course, is good Suncroft stock, so there's no surprise that he's doing so well. But Tony O'Connor is, some athlete out around the middle, the half forward line, and Kylie there as well. And then Peter Kelly marshalling things at the back. I just think 2 Mile House are more of a grown-up team at this point than Larry's are, and Larry's will come. And maybe it does happen for Larry's on Saturday. I don't think anyone would rule that out, but I just favour 2 Mile House in this one based on the momentum that they have as much as anything.
Okay, to sign it off then, Richard, 2 words for the National Electrical Wholesalers intermediate final are?
Well, 2 Mile House is 3 words to start with, so I don't know how I do that.
TMH.
TMH and, oh Lord, I'm gonna say Salons, but it's more tentative than even in the senior.
Okay. Ger, your 2 words.
Yeah, I probably won't stick to 2 words again. No, I like a lot of people in both 2 Mile House and St. Lawrence's, and a lot of love for both clubs. But for the reasons before, I think 2 Mile House just to get over Larry's and Larry's maybe to come back next year is stronger for it. In the other semi-final, I'd actually fancy Milltown to beat again without being disrespectful, and I'd fancy them to beat either 2 Mile House or St. Lawrence's if they're up against them. But I just think Salons would just be a bridge too far, albeit Milltown have been such a fantastic side this year and shown all that battling spirit. But if Salons perform to their best, and that's not necessarily a given on a semi-final day, there's plenty of favourites being cut in the past. But if Salons can perform to their best, get the 2 Daltons, get the Grimes firing, have Darren Mangan in midfield, I think Salons just have the edge on Milltown. But again, you wouldn't be totally surprised to see the flip side of those 2 results either.
And finally then, Tommy, a man of few words like yourself, can you give me 2 or 5 as the case may be?
TMH. It's 3 letters. 2 Mile House, and I'd just like to repeat, everything that Ger just said, because he's absolutely spot on. I want to go with Milltown because I know there's a lot of people in Salons that get really annoyed when I don't tip them, weirdly, and they've given me a bit of grief in the past, so I'm going to Milltown.
Okay. Tommy, you get a lot of grief around the place, Tommy. Obviously, the other three, the three of us, we're all right. We keep the head down, but you seem to soak it all up there on the
exactly, Pat. As I said, up in your glass, up eating your prawn sandwiches, up in your glass towers of the sparkly O'Connell's Park. Myself and the great unwashed are the one standing on the same weeds in that terrace for the last 15 years.
I love the sound of breaking glass. Okay, we have the first of the football finals for 2025. That's the Towncross Transport Junior Football Championship final. That's between Grange and Rathcoffey. And then in the Junior B, it's Robertstown versus Ballykelly. You always have a great interest in the Junior Championship, Tommy. So Grange Nolven versus Rathcoffey on Saturday in Seadrill St. Conleth's Park. And Mick Mullen did say that most teams will get playing in Seadrill St. Conleth's Park, and it's great to see the junior final there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's also it's given its stage. You see the intermediate semi-final moved out to Mangar Park. I know there's probably different reasons, but it's a real county final feel to it. There's no kind of match on beforehand, and it's standalone. It's there for you. I think there's going to be a huge crowd from both as well. Two noisy bunches, Grange and Rathcoffey. But it's the final that I kind of wanted. There's a lot of talk earlier in the season of Ballymore Eustace coming down, because obviously for the last 3 years the team that has come down from intermediate has gone straight back up. But there's a lot of these junior teams that have really put in the hard yards in the league, for example. Grange getting up to Division 2 and putting in a really good performance in Division 2 this year against some serious Division 2 lads. It's like that's a very, very hard league to get out of, and sometimes even harder to stay in. Rathcoffey is something similar in Division 3. Another difficult league playing against intermediate teams. They've put in these hard yards and they've been thereabouts for the last few years. Rathcoffey probably a touch disappointing last year. But Grange, I mean, we can see is it 20 years since Grange have been in a final, a junior final?
2005, yeah.
2005, and we know they got relegated a few years after that. But the last few years for Grange, I think the Milltown defeat was tough to take. There was great spice between them that year, a couple of years ago. The year before that, then I remember it was a freezing cold Friday night, I think, when Hill beat Grange after extra time, and that kind of started off that great rivalry between Kill and Grange. But they've just been there. I think that was a quarter final maybe, but they've been thereabouts. Last year's defeat for Grange against Kill was devastating. Grange were far better than they showed last year in that 3-point defeat. I think they lost by 3 points in the end to Kill, a Kill team that was gathering a bit of momentum. But Grange came out unbeaten out of the group and were shown like they were red hot favourites. Like looking at whatever other teams were going on to that final, we knew Ellistown were going well, but Grange were going to match them all the way. And then they just fell short again, and everything went wrong for them on the day. They haven't shown too much this year that they're affected by that. They've progressed as we thought they would. They're better than they were last year. Saying that, at Garvan did put it up to them at times in that semi-final, and at Garvan for a few periods, and you could hear, I think it was, who was doing the commentary, Pat? Was it Podge Fogard? I think it was Podge.
Probably Podge, yeah.
I think it was Podge was doing it. You could hear it even in his voice. He was thinking, I was trying to drive over to it. I was over at the Field of Dreams thing, and I had it on in the car, and you could feel that there was a pull towards at Garvan. Maybe at Garvan figured out a little bit of Grange. Maybe they figured out that there's a way through that defence and to keep the ball away from the likes of Conal Bergen in the middle of the field. To get tighter to Fionn, let it drop his influence a little bit. Grange got the job done. That's the most important part. But at Garvan definitely put up with them for a while. Whereas Rathcoffey are full of belief. they're not going to be afraid of Grange. There's a bit of spice here as well, lads, by the way. Going back the last 2 or 3 years, there's been plenty of needle between these two teams in matches. They met in an awful day in Larry's, I think it was last year. I think it was 9 points to 8 or something. It was a real manky night over in Larry's. And they just love hopping off each other. And anytime I speak to people from either club, if I'm speaking to a Rathcoffey or a Grange one, but the other, you can see their face tighten up when they're talking about the other team. But they genuinely dislike each other, lads. This is going to be an absolute cracker of a final.
Ger, it was close between Kappa and Rathcoffey. Kappa certainly put it up to Rathcoffey, and it was only in the last stages of the game that Rathcoffey pulled away. The likes of Ethan Donohoe and the Moriarty, they would be players to look out for, but they had to fight hard in that semi-final.
Yeah, and look, that's no harm going into a final, having had that tough, tight test like that and come through it. Kappa obviously pushed them to the limit, and from their point of view, were probably unlucky not to at least get a chance to play extra time that day. But yeah, look, Rathcoffey came through that. You mentioned those players. Ethan O'Donoghue he's a huge handful. He is somebody that's going to take a lot of looking after. He was a hugely talented underage player for Kildare, and but for injuries, he had the potential to go on and play at senior level. He is a sweet left foot around, as you see around, and he's powerful. He's a big, strong man. Jason Acton as well is another one who kind of had a great career at junior level. I think with Kildare, he would have been involved in a few good junior sides, and he's still plugging away. And Conor Harris is someone who Tommy has spoken at length about in the past, and he's the number one in the Conor Harris fan club as well. So yeah, like that, they have the talent there. There's no doubt about it. But like Grange have been on such a journey. Because looking back, 3 times within the last 10 years, they finished the championship without a single win. Rooted to the bottom of the group stage. I think it was 2017, 2018, and 2020. Then they had those young players coming through, and they got a bit better and got a lot better in fairness. But then they had more frustrations. Tommy's mentioned the Kill semi-final a couple of years ago after extra time. They lost by a point to Milltown as well the year that Milltown went on and won a Leinster title as well. So that kind of shows the level that they were playing at. And then there was that Kill game last year that was just so frustrating for them to not perform in the day. I think the experience of playing in Division 2 was a huge thing for them. I spoke to Fionn Bergen there last week, and Killian Bergen I was talking to, and he was just saying that it was really refreshing for them to play in Division 2, to play against sides that they hadn't played against in a while, to play at different venues, and kind of under the management there of David Conway, they've come on leaps and bounds even from a good position where they were last year. So I think they're a strong side. I think they're going to be a tough beat for Rathcoffey. I take Richard's point though as well. You mentioned about Salins. There is pressure probably on the shoulders of Grange, even though they're in their first final in 20 years. But I think they have the edge here. But it'll be a big weekend as well for Timmy Doyle, the one remaining survivor from that 2005 team playing for Grange. They have a couple of men involved in the management team, Eamon Farrell and Martin Leahy. But yeah, Timmy Doyle still playing. Martin Leahy, is it? Sorry.
Oh no, you can call it whatever you want. I think it's Leahy. I just remembered there as soon as you said his name. He was one tough lad. He I think he hurled for a tie as well. He's playing his football for Grange. I think he played rugby. Jeez, that lad would hit you. It was like getting hit by a ton of bricks. Same as all that family are all tough anyway. But, just when you mentioned that, he'd be a good man to have in the dressing room.
Yeah, a quick
Absolutely,
one.
Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry, just Pat, just involved in something else. Timmy Doyle as well. He's a some weekend star because he's involved in that Lumsden Cup final down on Sunday with Clonmullion as well. I'm not sure if he's still playing in the soccer or he's actually involved in the management team with their Clonmullion, but that's a big weekend for him to have a junior final and a Lumsden Cup on the 24 hours later.
Absolutely, and briefly from yourself then, Richard, the Bergen brothers, you always have been impressed by them. Could that be the difference between the two sides?
Yeah, I mean, there's the Bergens for sure, and I think Fionn hasn't been scoring in the last couple of games. I think it was you, Tommy, maybe mentioned it to me before that Fionn hadn't scored possibly from play even in the last game against who were they playing last?
Garvin,
yeah.
I think Connolly kept him scoreless from playing last game. It happened in 2 games previous as well.
Yeah, but then, Ger's mentioned some of the other names around that particular Grange team. They are a good all-round team, defensively very strong as well. I just don't think the draw has done them a lot of favours this year. I think it's done Rathcoffey huge favours in terms of the competitiveness of that Group B that they've had. I think Grange, will probably take a lot out of the Garvan game because it was one where it was put up to them. But I have a fear, in a way, I think this is a really exciting day for Grange. I have some connections down there, and you can sense they're really, really excited about this, but probably a bit nervous at the same time. They're coming into it as a lot of people's probably strong favourites, but it's a bit like Salins Milltown in that intermediate semi-final, as you say. I think, for Salinsbury Grange, I think Rathcoffey again are battle hardened. They've had a really competitive set of games all through the year. They've got talent to burn across the whole team. They've got a good forward line. They've beaten O'Donoghue, as you say. I have a sneaking feeling Rathcoffey might win this, and I texted that to a fella in Grange this morning, and he was probably doing cartwheels in the living room that I said.
Okay, Richard goes for
I'm going for Rathcoffey.
Ger?
I stick with Grange.
Grange, and the final judge,
Our
Tommy.
junior expert.
I also have connections in Grange, and people know I've been following them closely every year. If I was somebody from Grange, not a player, because I don't think it's going to bother them, I'd be very worried about this Rathcoffey team. I genuinely think they're packed with talent. I will say one thing as regards the game.
Who are you going for?
Rathcoffey's half-backs breaking and their half-forwards have more pace than that Grange half-back line.
Okay, so you're going for?
I don't know, Pat. I go for extra time. Is there replays?
There'd be extra time and a replay, but no penalty.
Extra. Then a draw. Oh yeah, draw.
A draw.
No, listen. I'll go for Grange.
Okay, all right, there we go. So 2-1, and then stay with you, Tommy. A very quick word: Robertstown versus Ballykelly in the Junior A final, the Toncross Junior A final. That was in Moorfields on Friday night at 8:00. A chance for Moorfield to show off their new facilities, indeed. And Robertstown must be favourites, I guess.
Yeah, you're spot on what you say. It is a great opportunity for Moorfield, and fair play to them for getting that game. They put a lot of work in out there. Robertstown should be favourites. They had great crack the last day, scoring a ball of goals, as they have all year. They love it. They're playing. They're kind of just, they can do what they want now. These lads want to be playing on Saturday. They want to be in the junior final, but they find themselves in the Junior A final. Ballykelly did the job the last day in a brilliant performance to get over the line against a disappointing Kill team. You would expect Robertstown to win this, but take nothing from Ballykelly to get there. Fair play to them.
Okay. Now, the reason the intermediate match between Milltown and Salins is in Mangard Park rather than Conlitz is because the Kildare LGFA Joe Malin Motors Senior Football Championship ladies final is in St. Conleth's Park, Cedar St. Conleth's Park on Friday night, 3rd of October at 7:45 live on Clubber. And Ger, it's a repeat of last year's final, St. Lawrence's versus Easttown. Larry's beat Sarsfields in the semi-final, like match you were at and still trying to dry out from it. I was at the other one, Easttown and Kilcullen. Easttown won that one, obviously. A repeat of last year's final. Your impression of Larry's probably a bit better than last year.
Yeah, I think they probably have come on, although it wouldn't be basing anything on that kind of 60 minutes, those such torrential conditions, other than the fact that they found a way to grind out a win in a tight game against Sarsfields. Like, I think Marie Keeley, we spoke with her the last day. She is a All-Ireland junior champion with Wicklow. She's added to the St. Lawrence's forward line in the last couple of years, so she's a big boost for them. They have county players there. The Wheeler sisters are there. Mia Ryan as well, we mentioned. She's another one who's had a kind of experience this year playing the senior county level, so she's definitely a big player for St. Lawrence's. But yeah, it's hard to get away from Easttown, isn't it? Even without seeing that game against Kilcullen, that they appear to have been absolutely ruthless at that. Grace Clifford, we've spoken about her, but Easttown are far from a one-woman team. The lady there in the picture, the captain, Grania Keneally, honestly, she put in one of the best individual performances I've seen, men or women, in a Kildare team, Kildare Cup side, when Easttown played in Tinahely last year. She was absolutely phenomenal that day. She covered every blade of grass and just a fantastic player for Easttown. So yeah, it's hard to get away from Easttown there. They have the experience, they have the know-how, they've won these big games in the past, and it's going to take an absolutely monumental effort for St. Lawrence's to win that. But they won't be able to show me facing St. Lawrence's at all this week now, tipping a 2-1 house now on Easttown as well.
But having said that, Ger, Larry's have beaten Easttown in the first game in the group stages. They beat them in the league final last year, so they know how to beat Easttown. And Easttown, speaking to Ger McNally and their new manager Seamus McLean, they never underestimate the Larrys because they know they have been beaten by them, and they have a new manager now in Liam McLaughlin. Liam McLaughlin is with Easttown, and Ger McNally is the captain. And then on the other side is Seamus McLean and Niamh O'Connor. Niamh, an experienced player as well, but Seamus McLean in this year. So Larrys know how to beat Easttown, I suppose I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, well, I think the first round of the championship is different to the final, but absolutely Lawrence's will have that know-how, and that's a big thing from their psychological point of view, that they, Easttown are not unbeatable by any means, and Lawrence's will go in with the confidence knowing that, again, it's all about what you do over the course of the hour. If Lawrence's perform and Easttown for whatever reason aren't quite at their levels, then absolutely St. Lawrence's are well capable of beating them. I wouldn't be completely ruling out St. Lawrence's by any means, and went through some of their county players. They have some really good experienced players as well who've dropped off the county panel for different reasons, and they're a strong team throughout. And as I said, Marie Keatley there, she has Marie Keatley, as a real scoring edge to the forward line as well. So absolutely, it's by no means a kind of a done and dusted deal here. Easttown will have to perform on the day, but they have the record of showing up at big days like this, so that's why I'll be edging towards them. And
they're going for 6 in a row. Will there be pressure on that?
I don't think there's pressure. No, I think, as I said, it's kind of a knowledge that they've been here before. They have a kind of young players coming through. Abby Cahill there, the forward line as well, has done well this year too. She's on the 20 Kildare development squad, but last year wasn't she as well? So, they have young players coming through. They're not just based around kind of their elder experienced players and their developing side as well. So, I don't think there's pressure on it. If anything, it's kind of that's definitely a good thing for them. As I said, they have players who've been there, done it, and worn a t-shirt. So, I think it's a very positive thing for them going into that final.
And they have Hazel McLaughlin back as well, which is a huge loss from last year. Yeah, to 2 cruciates, I think she did. So one on each leg. So it'll be an interesting one. Easttown obviously are favourites, but Larry's, and that match is on Friday night at 7:45 in St. Cedars and Conless Park. So kudos to Kildare GEA and indeed for the Kildare LGFA for coming to agreement to play that match in Cedars and Conless Park. Good that the ladies' team games are getting exposure like that live on Clubber TV, as I say. There are also a plethora of LGFA finals on Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, really, Ger. That's all those matches are taking place in Kilcock. We have the Joe Malin Motors Intermediate Football Championship final. That one is between Ballina and Naas. Ballina beat Carberry in the semi-final. Naas beat Kappa, and those will be interesting ones. Rachel Cribben, obviously playing for Ballina, and Lisa Shaw is the captain of Naas. So that'll be an interesting one as well.
Yeah, again, I can't complain to have seen too many of the games, but I did see Naas in their quarterfinal against Clane, and Alana Prizeman was absolutely outstanding. She scored, I think, 4 goals that game, as well as 3 or 4 points, and she's obviously on the back of a very good debut year at senior level for Kildare. So yeah, she at intermediate level is a real handful for any defence, and even a defence that has the experience of the likes of Rachel Cribben there is going to find it tough to keep Alana quiet. Lisa Shaw is strong around the centre of the field. Niamh Bergam was somebody who came off the bench that day, and she looked really sharp for a girl who's only kind of, I think, back in the country in the last few months and coming back from injury as well. So she's a big tall girl. There's a lot of we'll take a lot of handling as well and a lot of marking as well. So from the little that I'd know, I'd look towards Naas there. But again, these finals are always close as well. I mean, and Ballina coming in because of a successful season, so I certainly wouldn't be putting the mortgage on Naas. But yeah, they have the talent, I think, to win the game.
And Naas have Paddy McDermott's sister Aoife, centre half forward.
Aoife, yeah, another
dual player.
Yeah. I think she's obviously focusing more on the football, because she wasn't involved in football for a few years.
Yeah.
But I remember she told me last year that she was going to try to get back involved in it. She's a great asset to have, again, with that inter-county condition and training experience. But it was great for Naas. Did Ballina lose the last 3 finals?
Certainly lost 2 years ago by a point to Suncroft, as I recall.
They lost last year to Kill.
Okay.
I think they lost the year before. I think this is their 3rd final.
It could be, but a lot of experience there, I'm sure. But you would fancy that Naas might have I suppose the favoritism tag there, but they were in the relegation final last year, so they don't want to be there again. And so it's going to be an interesting one. That one is taking place at 4:30 on the Saturday afternoon in Kilcock. Earlier in the day, the Naas Racecourse Junior A Football Championship final. That one is between Selbridge and Nafina. The Selbridge manager was telling us that he's a lot of dual players and that. Nafina, they're managed by Amanda Donnelly, so that will be an interesting one. And Nafina, Tommy, they're always hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. In fairness, like the work that these people put in, I remember being in Malins last year, Pat, with you, and talking to a few of these players and management. So Amanda was involved. Am I wrong in saying, was Amanda Donnelly involved with the Kildare setup a couple of years ago, and was she involved in Dublin?
I'll give you that one.
I could be completely wrong. I think she was involved in some way with the Dublin, maybe the minor girls, or there's some connection there. I thought she had a daughter maybe playing around Towers. I could be way off on that one. But yeah, I mean,
we'll edit that out if it's wrong.
I'll double check it after this. But no, it's great for her, great for that club. And like to Selbridge. Like, look at Selbridge, Naas. These are big clubs. Athy probably had eyes this year and getting out of that junior grade. They didn't make it either. These are tough grades to get out of. So
and Nafina beat Athy. Nafina beat Athy in the semi-final. So that's the Naas Racecourse Junior A final between Selbridge and Nafina, 1:45 in Kilcock. There's also 4 more finals, all Naas Racecourse sponsored. In the Junior B final is Rathcoffey versus 2 Mile House. That's 11:45. The Junior C final, we don't have any team details on that. That's at 4 o'clock. The Naas Racecourse Junior C. We have the Naas Racecourse Reserve A final at 1:30, also in Kilcock. Kilcullen 2 versus Maynooth 2, and then we have the Naas Racecourse Reserve B. Clane 2 versus Leaksup 2, 11:30 throw in for that particular one. And again, kudos to Kildare LGFA for providing competitions for players of all levels and that. But the couple of interesting ones will be obviously the senior final, the intermediate final, and the Junior A final.
Pat, you don't have finalists for the Junior C. Sorry for interrupting you, because the semi-finals are on tonight.
Yeah.
Between Ellistown and Castledermot.
That's Tuesday night,
the 30th. Yeah. Ellistown versus Castledermot in Ellistown at 8 o'clock, and at Garvan versus St. Kevin's in Moorfield at 8 o'clock.
Makes it very tight for to play a final then on the Saturday. But look at that's the nature of the game. What have we got else here? Any other business? We have loads of activity. Mikey Pender did very well in the horse show jumping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he seems to be having a fantastic season for any of those show jumping aficionados. Unfortunately, I can't tell you much more than that. Yeah, we won a world title in Belgium, though, and he continues to compete at a very high level and do really well, and kind of representing Kildare and Ireland at a high standard in his chosen sport, and do brilliantly.
And down the road from us in the Curragh, Niall McCullough doing what Niall McCullough has done for years and years and years. Great to see him back doing very well.
That was an incredible story, wasn't it? Like, he's 56 years of age, over 30 years since he last.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I tell you, if you're as fit and fresh as Niall McCullough is, you'll be no problem being 56 anyway. I look forward to it. He still goes strong, and like to have his son in the same race kind of event. Scott finished 5th as well, so it's just incredible for him to have that still desire and wants to go and try and compete at the highest level. But it was even remarkable the horse snuck in as a reserve horse, even on the Sunday morning. Niall McCullough didn't realise that he was going to be racing in the race, and it kind of came through, and it was just like one of these things that was meant to happen. But what a valuable race it is as well. It was over, I think, 300,000 for the winner as well, so I'm sure Niall will get a nice cut out of that. So it was a good day's work. But he's a great man. He's coaching younger jockeys as well, coming through too, and still has that love and desire and passion to compete at the highest level. So yeah, it was a really good story there in the Curragh on Sunday. Just went through Russell Sullivan as well, because he had the second place in that race as well, 66 to 1. Horse Shally Shoot, who actually I think won earlier this summer at 125 to 1. So obviously a horse that likes the big prices. But yeah, Ross has done well with various horses over the jumps as well. But that was a good run there in the Cesarewitch to take second place at a huge price there as well.
Yeah, Cheltenham 2 years ago, he hit a second at 80 to 1 as well. So he certainly has long price winners who come second, as you could say. You mentioned it earlier on, Ger, the Lumsden Cup final is on. Always a great competition in Kildare.
Yeah, absolutely. The kind of the flagship day there for the KDFL. Clonmullion have had a fantastic season, albeit they were beaten by Naas there, I think, last week in the Senior Division Cup. So their dreams of a treble are kind of ended, but they've long had the league title wrapped up there in the top division. So they'll probably start as favourites. I think they're going for their 4th Lumsden Cup in 5 years, up against Kildare Town, who won the division below, but kind of won it at an absolute canter. They could have won it, I think, after 13 or 14 games. They actually slipped up on a couple of occasions when they could have got their hands on a trophy, but still won it with 5 or 6 games to spare. So they're under the management now of Fergal Finn, who kind of has a long-standing association with the Lumsden Cup. He's had some brilliant days in it as a player, some tough days as a manager. He was managing Liffey Celtic on a couple of occasions where they suffered really heartbreaking losses when they were, I think, definitely 3-1 up one year and came back and they lost that game. So yeah, he's had some tough days, Fergal Finn, but he's an excellent manager, and he's first year back with Kildare Town, and that's a club that he has a long association with as well as a player too. And his father was a fantastic manager there and had wonderful success with Kildare Town. So yeah, he'd love to get his hands in that Lumsden Cup on Sunday, but no doubt about it, Clonmullion will start that game as the favourites.
Yeah,
interesting as well that Lee Doyle, who plays for that Clonmullion team, would have been a star on that Grange team last year. The last few years, he would like Lee would have been one of the main men as a flying wing back, and he's not playing this year for Grange, where he stepped away. He's obviously focusing more on Clonmullion. Spoke to him briefly in St. Conleth's Park before the Ballymore game, and he just said he just stepped away for this year. God, I tell you one thing, Grange could do with him in that county final, because he's a serious player, as people watching the Lumsden Cup final will see.
Yeah. Rugby, Ger, start of the AIL and indeed the Leinster League continued, but a challenging start for Naas, you might say.
Yeah, they had a long trip north there to Belfast, and just reading up on the reports, kind of the much changed Naas side. I think they only had 7 players, was it, from the kind of the side that finished last season. So a big changeover of players. Johnny Murphy, though, still the man in charge there in terms of the coaching and head coach of the team. So you couldn't have anybody better leading the team and have any more experience than that. So I'm sure that results for Naas will pick up pretty quickly, and they have their first home game of the week, home game of the season this weekend. Into the Leinster League, then a tie continue there. Win the start of the season, they need to get a win on the board now. I think it's 3 defeats in a row at the start of the season. But Newbridge had a fantastic victory, their first home match of the season against Balbriggan, and that's obviously stepping up from the division below last year. They lost their opening round away, but had a 50-9 point victory over Balbriggan at the weekend. So that was a big win for them, and kind of gives them their first win at that higher level. So that's something to take a huge amount from. And
of course, Kildare players doing well with the provinces as well, and we wish them the best of luck for this weekend. Finally, to wrap it all up, Ger, we were talking about GA in the county, but outside the county, there's a few people involved in Wicklow and Carlow. Tony Gray managing in Wicklow, and indeed Brian Lonigan managing in Carlow. So congratulations and best wishes to them, I say.
Yeah, and I'm sure Tommy knows Tony Gray better than me, but he's someone who's done a brilliant job there with Carnew Emmets. They're looking for their first championship title since 1973, and we're talking about dual players a lot through this podcast. But Carnew they're in both finals in Wicklow, the football and the hurling, so there's been a lot for Tony to deal with up there, but it's done a fantastic job to get them to the final, and they take on Baltinglass as well, so that'll be a good game, and no doubt to be a big contingent of the Castledermot supporters will get up there to cheer on Carnew and try and help Anthony over the line. And then Brian Lonigan from Monasterevin, he's doing really well down at Carlow with Loughlin there into a semi-final as well. Unfortunately, the 2 other Kildare managers were beaten last weekend. Pod Fogarty with Clonmore in the intermediate quarterfinals, they were only beaten by a couple of points, and Darlach Mahal with Fenna in the senior championship. They have done superbly well to maintain their senior status, but just found that the came too far in the quarterfinals last week. But O'Loughlin, Brian Lonigan is the manager there. They're a serious outfit, and I suppose that the big news in Carlow is obviously that Éire Óg and Tinryland are in a relegation final, so that opens the door possibly. So Palatine and Rathvilly have been recent winners down there, but O'Loughlin, they're pushing hard. So it would be Brian Lonigan. I'm sure we'll have to support from Monasterevin down there as well.
So the point that wasn't in the end down in Carlow, because that looked very much a point from where I was looking.
Tinryland seemed to let that go a little easy. It was all wrapped up and done in a day or two, and the result stands. Second thing was 3 yards over the bar.
I think, and there has been precedent set, I think, around the country, but the replay's been offered, but that's more to do with, I think, 2-pointers. Yeah, I think from that point of view down in Carlow, it's pretty much that even with video evidence that it's nigh on impossible to overturn a referee's report, I suppose.
I'd be taking it to The Hague.
Well, Carlow people might remember that back before all you fellas were born, there was that famous point that was it Michael Lawler that scored against Laois? And
against
Laois.
Yeah, I even remember that.
In fairness, Laois offered a replay, and I think did Laois win it? Of course it did, yeah. But yeah, so Carlow people will remember that one where Laois offered a replay when the Michael Lawler point that was in Port Laois. I was doing that game for the old CKR radio at the time. Those were the days. Those were the days.
Ger, did you say Karen you were playing Baltinglass?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge. No. Yeah.
No, even more reason for Castleormond folk to head over and support Karen
Richard, you're looking forward to a good sporting weekend, I guess.
I am, but it'll be GA dominated for me, I think. I'm in awe of you and Ger in particular here, and your knowledge of all the local sports going on. I just have to focus on GA. I don't have time for it. So yeah, I'll be at that Salons game on Friday night, and then the 2 in Conlets on Sunday. So really, really looking forward to those. One thing just to mention as well, if I can, just back on the GAA, is there's a coaching event organised by Kildare GAA on the 25th, I think it is, of October, and fabulous to see the management teams of both the football and the hurling leading that particular coaching event. You've Brian Flanagan, Davy Burke, Aidan O'Rourke on the football side, and then Brian Dowling and Richie Ruth on the hurling side. So I think it's only a tenner in as well. So like clubs really need to get their coaches on that one. I would have thought should be a great day.
Maybe we'll broadcast the podcast live from that particular one. No chance. Okay, I think that's about wraps it up.
Pat, before you go, I'm stopping you one more time again.
I said
because
last word.
I can't let it go without saying that I know you're commentating on the ladies' match on Friday night, and I do know there's a big load of ladies that are going to be tuning in from St. Lawrence's. Eileen Dowling and crew were inquiring whether the match was on Clubber and whether Pat Costello would be doing the commentary.
So they'll switch off.
Yeah,
so they can switch off.
So everybody is very happy that match is being shown. Particularly, I know they're big Larry's fans. So shout out to them and fair play to you, Pat.
I want to say thanks to Ger, to Richard, and to Tommy. And I've been Pat Costello, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Short Grass.